Good evening. Welcome to the ShadowTrader video weekly for Sunday, April 8th, 2012. Happy holidays to all, Easter and Passover this weekend. Let's get to the charts. The S&P, as we were discussing in last week's video, has been chopping in a range here, and I was saying last week that perhaps we should be cautious because it seems like the highs that we've been making, I was referencing this high in last weekend's video saying, not much higher than the prior high, and then once again we made a high this past week not much higher than that prior high, and then sold off back into the range here. Friday the markets were closed. However, this happened. All right, we had economic data released on Friday, even though equity markets were closed. Notice that the employment situation came in really weak, expecting to add 227,000 non-farm payrolls, came in like 120. So basically, you had a situation on Friday where futures were still open, and look what happened, right? You have about a 15-point drop here, right down into here, from 90 down to 75. So we're going to open obviously much lower on Monday morning. We'll see how much further these trade Sunday night when they reopen. Should be interesting. What I'm watching this week, I think that the move down in the markets here is going to be buying opportunity. I am bullish. I will be looking for buy opportunities, and I'll be talking about that in a second. One of the things that I want everybody to pay close attention to, and I'm going to be blogging about it in the mornings in my pre-market blog. So if you haven't checked that out yet, you should. That's right here at ShadowTrader.net. Click on blog, and every morning I do a pre-market blog where I show pictures of what the market profile looks like. Okay, and when we open on Monday, and it's probably should be weak, what I want everybody to look for is if we get a B-shaped picture like this, letter B, because letter B indicates that the move down is what's called a liquidation break. That means that the selling is essentially technical and not fundamental. It means that the money is not coming out of the market for any real reason. Nothing's really changed. It just means that the majority of the players got too long. Okay, and when they get too long, you get this action. That's called liquidation break. All right, and liquidation break generally leaves a pattern in the profile that's shaped like a letter B, where what happens is you go down really fast, and then instead of going lower, you just hang out there where near the market's open, and you create value there. That's called liquidation break, right? So that's something I'm going to be talking about next week in my pre-market blog, and again, that's at ShadowTrader.net. right here under blog, so I urge you to check that out. I do post a report there pretty much every single morning. All right, that being said, let's get back to the chart. So we are going to open lower in the S&P. I do think that it is going to be a buying opportunity, and one of the things I'm watching very closely is obviously the channel. So check out this daily here in the S&P, and I've already got the channel lines drawn in. We have a really good opportunity here where there's only two touches here, and that's the minimum two touches, obviously, that define a trend. And since then, the market has rallied so strongly that we have never come back to the low end of the channel at all. And you got to figure we're going to open 15 points lower or more, so there's a good chance now that the market is actually going to travel back to the low end of the channel, where I believe that there's going to be some buying opportunity. Look at the ES here, same thing, right? It has the dominant trend line all the way from back there. This daily chart here is updated in real time. So this is the move that happened on Friday morning that's already happened. And now you see there's not too much further to go to this 1360 area right here. And that's what I'm going to be watching in the futures. Okay, so that being said, what are some of the stocks that are showing some promise? Okay, IBM is one that I'm looking at very much. Notice that these are just simple trend lines here, drawn. This is the one I'm most interested in. This dominant trend line, I think, is too far away. I started drawing that in here, but I don't think we fall all the way there. I think the IBM is going to come into a buy point first off of this trend line from its last pullback here. That puts the stock around in the 202 area. IBM does trade weekly options, so that makes it extra interesting because there's lots of different plays that you can do with it. Look at this trend line here from the last pullback in Goog. Brings GOOG right into this pocket at 620, and notice that pocket ties in right with these prior highs. So I'm going to be looking at some play in Google as well. CMG, which is Chipotle Mexican. This stock seems to go in only one direction, which is up. And recently it has been bumping its head in the exact same area. So instead of trend line, I've got to do price level here. And notice how many touches you've had right at the same level. You've had 1, 2, 3, and now 4. So the fact that we're gapping down strongly is really, really interesting on Monday. How would you feel about a breakout play in CMG if on Monday, Tuesday, or whatever off the weakness, CMG never loses the low of this bar? Yeah, I think it would be really screaming that there's a breakout play at that 425 area, I would say, if the low of this is not lost as the futures are doing their sort of liquidation break thing. All right. Amazon as well. I already have the trend line drawn in. Look at the 183 area. And pretty much all of this stuff that I'm mentioning is weekly option stock. So I want you to keep in mind as you're doing this, you know, you've heard me talk about things like broken wing butterfly. There's all sorts of things that can be done here. You can buy a ratio spread like a 1x2, like, you know, buy 1 put, sell 2 puts lower. You know, if you've got the buying power for that. If not, you can push it out to a broken wing butterfly. Obviously, you can buy deep in the money calls. There's a lot of stuff here. There's weeklies, so there's calendar spreads that could be done. I really like stocks that trade weekly options. There's really a lot of essentially options, for lack of a better word, of things you can do. So Amazon's also going to be on the radar around the 183 area. And last but not least, of course, the mighty AAPL, which has just been thumbing its nose at everybody as far as a buy point. And I don't know why my chart here is screwing up. There we go. Thumbing its nose at everybody in terms of a buy point. I like the 600 just because obviously there's some congestion there, and notice that your 20 MA is right there. Last time we touched the 20 MA, it was a good buy point. Stock rallied much higher. So I'm thinking that another touch of the 20 would be good. We shall see. Obviously, Apple is very, very overextended from its dominant trend line and channel, which is here. So you can see this channel now. There would have to be another channel drawn here, which is much higher, setting up like this, right? Something like that. So obviously it's getting a little bit steep. I would use caution, but I do think that pullbacks are viable in the stock. So obviously when we're faced with something like this, which I think people have been waiting for, this sort of big pullback in the futures, and you're coming into area of support such as the trend line in the futures and or the lower part of the channel in the broad market, SPX, obviously Apple is something that you should be thinking about on your radar. All right, that's it for now. Let's see how we open on Monday. Remember, look for the possible liquidation break pattern. If the pattern is not one of a liquidation break and you have something, let me show you something more along the lines of, say, this. This is called an elongated profile, right? This sort of elongated profile tells you that the sellers are distributing contracts at all different levels and the selling is pretty strong. So you have basically, if this is the definition of an entire day, it tells you that there were sellers like everywhere. Whereas when you have the liquidation break, it's more like there were really not that many sellers here. It seemed like it was violent going down, and it was, but there wasn't really a lot of participation there because no value was built at that area. The market didn't really spend a lot of time there. It was just one big whoosh. So we'll see. Futures opening up on Sunday evening. We'll see where the ES continues. Obviously, I'm recording this before Sunday night, so we'll see where the ES continues, and we're going to be keeping an eye on that dominant trend line there at the 1360 on Monday. All right, on behalf of myself and the entire ShadowTrader team here in beautiful Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, I wish you good trading and good night.